My name's Amos Carver, and at 77, life's a bit like an old truck. Creaky, slow to start, and full of rattles you didn't notice when it was new. Every morning, I wake up to aches in places I didn't even know I had, and the quiet's heavier than it used to be since my wife, Clara, passed 5 years ago. Cancer took her too soon, and it left a hole nothing could fill. We bought this big two-story house in Bayside Haven back in the 80s, a gorgeous spot right by the bay with a view so stunning it could stop your heart. The kind of place you dream of growing old in, sipping coffee on the porch, watching the waves roll in. But these days, it's just me, my arthritis, and a house that feels like a museum of memories. That morning, I was in the kitchen, stirring my usual bowl of oatmeal, the kind Clara used to tease me about for being old man food. The TV was blaring the local news, some story about a new pier opening down by the marina, filling the silence of a house too big for one. I was just about to sit down when I heard tires crunching on the gravel driveway. I shuffled to the window, squinting through the blinds, and there it was, my son Nathan's shiny black SUV, looking out of place in my sleepy little world. What the heck is he doing here? Nathan's not the surprise visit type. He's always too busy with his corporate job, his fancy wife, and their perfect little life to drop by unannounced. Usually he'd call or shoot a text, not roll up at 7 a.m. like he's delivering a pizza. I grabbed my old flannel robe, yeah, it's got holes, but it's comfy, and stepped onto the porch. The morning air was damp, carrying that salty tang from the bay. Nathan climbed out of the SUV, followed by his wife Sylvia and my grandkids Ethan and Lily. Sylvia was already in boss mode, yanking suitcases from the trunk like she was moving in for good. No good morning, Dad, no wave, just her usual take charge vibe. Nathan gave me a tight, awkward smile as he climbed the porch steps. "Hey, Dad, thought we'd swing by for a visit." I eyed the 6 suitcases Ethan was wrestling out of the trunk, the kid grumbling under his breath. "Looks like more than a visit, Nathan." He scratched his neck, avoiding my eyes. "Yeah, we're staying a while. House renovations, you know. I mentioned it on our last call." I didn't remember a darn thing about renovations. Our last call was 3 weeks back, and it was all him asking about my health, my meds, whether I was managing okay alone. No word about turning my house into their personal Airbnb. "How long's a while?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. "Couple weeks, maybe a month," he muttered, shrugging like it was no big deal. "Don't worry, Dad, we'll stay out of your hair." He clapped my shoulder, harder than necessary, and breezed past me into the house. Sylvia followed, clutching her designer handbag, barely sparing me a nod. Ethan mumbled, "Hey, Grandpa," dragging 2 suitcases, while Lily flashed a quick smile before her eyes darted back to her phone, thumbs flying. I stood there on the porch, the bay stretching out before me, its waves glinting in the early light, my gut twisted. My quiet, predictable life, yeah, it just got tossed out the window. It took about 10 minutes for the chaos to start. I shuffled back inside, still processing, and found Sylvia in the kitchen, tearing through my fridge like a health inspector on a mission. "Amos, this yogurt's expired, and this bacon, total heart attack material," she said, tossing my groceries into the trash can. I stared, dumbfounded, as she chucked the bacon I'd bought 2 days ago. I wanted to snap that I'd been eating bacon since she was born and hadn't dropped dead yet, but arguing with Sylvia is like trying to reason with a hurricane. You just get swept away. Meanwhile, Nathan was pacing the house, eyeballing rooms like he was staging a coup. "Dad," he said, popping back into the kitchen, "we're thinking Sylvia and I take the master bedroom. Better for you to stay downstairs. No stairs to climb with your joints acting up." My heart stopped. The master bedroom was ours, Clara's and mine. Her old mystery novel still lined the nightstand, her favorite scarf draped over the armchair, her perfume lingering like a ghost. "I'm fine in my room," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Climb the stairs every day. Keeps me moving." Sylvia piped up, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Amos, you're 77. Stairs are a fall waiting to happen. We're just looking out for you." I wanted to yell that I'd never fallen in my life, that I didn't need their pity. But Nathan gave me that look, half pity, half annoyance, like I was a stubborn kid. "It's just for a bit, Dad. The guest room's cozy." Cozy? The guest room was a glorified closet with a lumpy twin bed, a rickety dresser, and a window that barely opened. But I knew fighting was pointless. They'd made up their minds. By the end of the day, I was hauling my stuff downstairs, each item a stab to the chest. Clara's Polaroid of us at the county fair, our old anniversary clock with its chipped face, her little glass bird collection she'd hunted down at flea markets. Every piece was a memory, a tether to her. Moving them felt like betraying her all over again. By evening, the house wasn't mine anymore. Sylvia had slapped up her tacky abstract art, all swirls and weird colors, shoving my framed photos into a corner. Nathan's suitcase sprawled across the living room like he owned the place, and the kids had claimed the upstairs den, my old reading nook, for their video games and music. Dinger was Sylvia's healthy quinoa nonsense, which tasted like birdseed. They sat there planning their takeover like I wasn't even at the table. "This blue in the dining room's gotta go," Sylvia said, wrinkling her nose. "So dated. I'm thinking charcoal gray, maybe some sage accents for a modern vibe." "That's Clara's color," I said, gripping my fork so hard my knuckles whitened. "She picked that paint herself." Sylvia rolled her eyes, like I had said something ridiculous. "Amos, that was like forever ago. Nobody does blue anymore." "This is my house," I reminded her, my voice low but sharp. Nathan jumped in, all smooth and condescending. "Dad, we're just sprucing things up. Increases the property value, you know." "You planning to sell my house?" I shot back, heart pounding. "No, no," Nathan said, too quick, exchanging a glance with Sylvia that made my skin crawl. "Just keeping it in good shape." I didn't buy it. Something was off, and I could feel it in my bones. The next few weeks were a slow-motion nightmare. Sylvia took over like she was redecorating the White House. Breakfast got moved to 8 a.m. No more of my 7 a.m. coffee and quiet. My beloved coffee got swapped for some foul herbal tea because caffeine's bad for your heart, Amos. My old westerns on TV, gone, replaced by Sylvia's reality shows or Nathan's endless sports channels. I'd try to watch Gunsmoke and Sylvia would switch to some drama about rich people yelling at each other. "It's too loud, Amos," she'd say, like I was the one blasting the volume. One morning, I came back from my walk along the bay, my one escape, and found my vinyl collection missing from the living room. Johnny Cash, Patsy Cline, some rare Hank Williams records I'd spent years collecting. Gone. "Where's my stuff?" I demanded, catching Sylvia arranging scented candles where my record player used to be. "In the garage," she said, not even looking up. "So dusty, and Lily's got allergies." "Those are worth money," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "First edition, some of them." "Amos, nobody uses records anymore," she sighed, like I was a dinosaur. I stormed to the garage and found them in a moldy cardboard box, some sleeves bent, a few scratched. I hauled the box to my room and stashed it under the bed, my hands trembling. Then Sylvia went after my photo albums, decades of memories, pictures of Clara, Nathan as a kid, our family vacations. I found them in the trash bin out back. "They were cluttering the closet," she said, no apology. "You can scan them, you know. It's more practical." Practical? Those albums were my life. I dragged them back to my room, adding them to the growing pile of things I had to protect from Sylvia's decluttering. The kids barely noticed me.
Ethan was always out, chasing job interviews or hanging with friends. Lily was glued to her phone, answering my attempts of conversation with one-word grunts. I offered to help her with her school project once. I'd been a postal inspector for 40 years. I knew a thing or two about research. She just shrugged. "Thanks, Grandpa, but I've got Google." I was a ghost in my own home. My life erased bit by bit. Then Lily dropped the bomb that changed everything. It was a rainy Sunday, and I was in my cramped guest room flipping through one of Clara's old journals when Lily knocked softly. "Grandpa, can I come in?" "Course, kiddo," I said, surprised. She rarely sought me out. She stepped inside, looking nervous, her eyes darting around my room, now a storage unit for my salvaged belongings. "Wow," she said, eyeing the stacks of records and albums. "This is where all the stuff went." "Not all of it," I said bitterly. "Your mom threw out plenty."
Lily grimaced and sat on the edge of my bed. "Grandpa, I overheard Mom and Dad talking. They're planning to move Grandma Rose and Grandpa Frank here. They sold their place in Ocean View." My blood ran cold. Sylvia's parents, moving into my house? Where are they going to put them? I asked, though I already knew. Lily fidgeted with her sleeve. "They think you'd be better off somewhere else, like a senior home. They've already booked a spot at Cedar Haven." A senior home. My own son was planning to kick me out to make room for his in-laws. "When were they going to tell me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Tonight," she whispered. "They want the whole family there." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. That night, Nathan called a family meeting in the living room. I sat in my old recliner, the one thing Sylvia hadn't dared touch, and stared at him. Sylvia started, her voice all syrupy concern. "Amos, we're worried about you living alone. This house is too much for you. Big, old, those stairs." "You mean it's too much for you," I snapped. "You want it for Rose and Frank." Nathan sighed, like I was being unreasonable. "Dad, we found a great place. Cedar Haven's got activities, a dining hall, people your age." "I'm not going," I said, my hands trembling. Sylvia's eyes narrowed, her mask slipping. "If you don't agree, we'll get guardianship. A couple of doctor's notes and it's done." I looked at Nathan, my own son, the boy I'd taught to fish, the kid I'd comforted through his first breakup. "You'd do that to me?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's for your own good, Dad." I was trapped. "Fine," I said, my voice cold. "I'll go, but you'll regret this." 3 days later, they drove me to Cedar Haven, a dreary gray building that smelled like bleach and regret. My room was a shoebox with a creaky bed, a chipped nightstand, and a window overlooking the parking lot. Nathan promised to visit soon, but his eyes said otherwise. Sylvia fussed over my suitcase, reminding me about my meds like I was a child. Lily hugged me, tears in her eyes. "I'll come see you, Grandpa," she whispered. "Don't worry about me, kiddo," I stroked her hair. But as they drove away, I felt a part of me break. The first week at Cedar Haven was pure misery. The food was bland, think overcooked carrots and mystery meat. The active community Sylvia raved about was just a bunch of old folks staring at a blaring TV in the common room. I spent most of my time in my room, rereading Clara's journals or staring at old photos, wondering where I went wrong. I was ready to give up when a familiar voice snapped me out of it. "Amos Carver, is that you?" I looked up in the dining hall to see Charlie Grayson, an old buddy from my postal inspector days, grinning at me over a tray of watery mashed potatoes. "What the hell are you doing in this dump?" I said my loving son decided I'm too old to live, forcing a bitter smile. I spilled the whole story, Nathan and Sylvia's invasion, the senior home plot, how they'd taken over my life. Sylvia's eyes narrowed when I mentioned the house was still in my name. "You own it?" he said, leaning in. "Sell it. Screw 'em over." "Sell it?" I blinked. The idea hit me like a thunderbolt. But where would I go? I can't afford another place with these prices. Charlie grinned, his eyes glinting. "My cousin Marcus is a realtor. He can find a buyer who will let you stay in a guest house. People are dying for Bayside property in Bayside Haven. You'd be set." I felt a spark of hope, something I hadn't felt in weeks. "You think it'll work?" "Bet your ass it will," Charlie said. "Let's teach those ingrates a lesson." Charlie's cousin Marcus was a slick operator with a smile like a used car salesman, but the good kind. He met me at Cedar Haven posing as a visitor and laid out the plan. "Mr. Carver, that house of yours is prime real estate. I can get you a buyer, and we'll sneak you out for inspections. Nathan and Sylvia won't know anything till it's done." It sounded like something out of a spy movie, but I was in. Marcus set up field trips through Cedar Haven's activity program. Botanical gardens, local history museum, you name it. I'd slip away from the group and meet him to show the house while Nathan and Sylvia were out. The first buyers were a snooty New York couple who wanted to gut the place for a modern remodel. No guest house, no deal. I wasn't letting my home be torn apart. Then came Walter Hayes, a rugged guy in his mid-50s who just sold his construction business for a fortune. He wasn't flashy, no suit, just jeans and a flannel shirt, with a tan that said he spent more time outdoors than in boardrooms. He walked through the house, nodding thoughtfully, asking about the neighbors, the bay, the history. "This place has soul," he said, standing in the backyard, the waves crashing in the distance. "I'm fine with a guest house. My dad lived with me till he passed. I get it."
Walter offered 20% above market value with a clause to build me a guest house and ensure my belongings, records, albums, all of it, were safe. We signed the deal in a week, Marcus handling the paperwork like a pro. The house was sold, and Nathan didn't have a clue. I felt a thrill I hadn't felt in years, like I was pulling off the heist of the century. The big reveal was set for Saturday, when Nathan was throwing a birthday bash for Sylvia's dad, Frank, at my house. Perfect timing for maximum impact. Marcus called ahead, pretending Walter was a potential buyer. Nathan took the bait, thinking he could make a quick buck, agreeing to a tour before the party. Marcus and Walter picked me up from Cedar Haven at 1:30 p.m. I wore my best suit, slightly outdated, but I felt sharp. My heart was pounding as we pulled up to the house. The driveway was packed with cars, catering folks bustling around with trays of food and flowers. It looked like a damn wedding, not a birthday party. "Big shindig," Walter said, parking his truck. "Ready for this, Amos?" "Ready as I'll ever be," I said, my knees shaky, but my resolve ironclad. Nathan answered the door, half-dressed in a rumpled shirt, a towel slung over his shoulder. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Dad, what the hell are you doing here?" "Hello, Nathan," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm here to see my home, or rather, my former home." Walter stepped forward, cool as ice. Walter Hayes, the new owner of this house. Sylvia appeared, decked out in a fancy dress, and froze mid-step. "The what?" "I sold it," I said, calm but firm. "You've got 30 days to move out." The room went dead silent. Sylvia's parents, Rose and Frank, walked in, looking confused. Rose, a short woman with a perm like a poodle, gasped. "Sold it? You're in a nursing home!" "Fully capable," Marcus said, sliding a folder across the dining room table, now covered with party decorations. "Here's the deed, signed and registered, all legal." Nathan's face turned beet red. "This is insane! You can't do this!" "I did," I said, staring him down. "You kicked me out, took my home, my life, now you're out." Sylvia's voice trembled. "Where are we supposed to go? We have kids, my parents." "Figure it out," I said, my voice cold. "You had no problem dumping me at Cedar Haven." The party went on, but it was a disaster. Nathan and Sylvia plastered on fake smiles for the guests, but their nervous glances gave them away. Rose whispered furiously to Frank in the corner, throwing me dirty looks. I stood there, watching it all, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. Walter and I left them to stew, and as we walked out, I felt lighter than I had in years. The guest house was ready in 2 months, a bright, spacious spot with big windows, a view of the bay, and no stairs to trip me up. Walter put me up in a nice apartment in the meantime, a 1-bedroom with an ocean view and a kitchen I could actually use. I started photography classes, snapping sunrises and seagulls, and met Margaret, a sharp-witted widow who loved old jazz as much as I did. We'd go for walks, grab coffee, even hit a concert or two. I planned a Caribbean cruise, something Clara and I always dreamed of, but never did. Lily kept her promise, visiting every weekend. We'd walk the promenade, eat burgers at the diner, and talk about her college plans. She was studying finance, dreaming of working in New York someday. "You've changed, Grandpa," she said one day over ice cream. "You seem happy." "I am, kiddo," and I meant it. Took a while, but I'm living for me now. Nathan and Sylvia, they rented a place nearby, still whining about the house. They called, begged, even showed up uninvited, trying to guilt me into helping them. "Dad, we can't afford a decent place," Nathan groaned. "The market's insane. You've got good jobs. Rent an apartment. Your parents-in-law sold their house for a pretty penny. You'll manage." I set up trusts for Lily and Ethan's education, making sure Nathan and Sylvia couldn't touch the money. They weren't happy, but I was done letting them run my life. Standing on my guest house terrace one evening, watching the sunset with Margaret, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. The bay stretched out, waves glinting pink and gold, just like the sunsets Clara and I used to watch. I'd lost my home, my son's respect, but I'd gained something bigger: myself. At 77, I learned it's never too late to take back what's yours, to say no to the people who try to break you, to choose your own path, no matter how many years you've got left. And as I stood there, Margaret's hand in mine, the future didn't seem so scary anymore.